So, Luke, anything you want to talk about this fine evening?
Not much, Michael. No, apart from I am visiting the United States of America soon.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Washington DC to be specific. So, yeah, that's going to be fun.
Yeah, that sounds like it is going to be fun.
No, it is.
I hope you enjoy it.
I hopefully I will. The only issue is the heat. It's going to be like 31 degrees throughout the week. So yeah, I'm gonna burn basically, Michael. I'm gonna fry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's also annoying because it's like you want to be hot in a place where there's nothing to do. But I've heard on the street that the capital cities of places or the capital cities of countries are generally places where you want to walk around, get into the midst of the hustle and bustle. So really, Luke, you should change your mind and go to Florida. And then that way you can just lie on the beach, just go to DC and then just drive on down to Florida. I'm sure that's not very far.
Well, I've never been to Florida, but I have been to Georgia, and let me tell you, like, you don't even have to do anything. You can just stand still and you'll sweat. Like, because it's not just the heat, it's the humidity down there. It's crazy. But yeah, no, I'm looking forward, apart from that, to going to Washington and see the White House and everything.
Yeah.
Fun.
Well, you'll be so sweaty that you'll need to be washing a ton.
That's good. That's clever. That's why we have you on here.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm always glad when you choose to invite me. It adds a little ray of sunshine to my week. Hello and welcome to Select and Reflect, the movie review podcast where we look at films that have come out relatively recently at the cinema and see if they still hold up upon a second watch. I'm your host Michael, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Luke, and this week we are looking at a Spike Lee joint called Do the Right Thing. We're of course doing this as sort of a twin package, as it were, with our last week's review of Driving Miss Daisy, and Luke, why don't you tell us a thing or two about Do the Right Thing?
Certainly, Michael. And you're right to point out that this isn't actually a film. This is a joint. This is the first joint we are ever doing. So there you go. So, anyway, Do the Right Thing. It's a 1989 American comedy drama film produced, written, and directed by Spike Lee. Just like Tommy Wiseau in The Room.
I was thinking of that, yeah, and the accent. This is very much, it's The Room of think pieces about race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So it stars Spike Lee. I just love looking at the Wikipedia page. It's like Spike Lee. Also stars Danny, fucking hell, Aiello. I hope I said that right. Ozzie Davis.
Yeah, why not?
Ruby Dee, Richard Edson, Giancarlo Esposito, Bill Nunn, John Turturro, Rosie Perez, and John Savage. It was released on July the 21st, 1989, so just over 30 years ago. And can you guess the budget, Michael, for Do the Right Thing?
Oh no, it's got to have been like not much at all. 8 million?
Yeah, that's a decent guess. 6 million.
Good.
Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, around that time. Also, not time, around that budget. And can you guess the box office?
Oh goodness me. I mean, I don't think this made like that much. So let's go for 55 million.
37.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe if it got to that 55 million level, black audiences would have rioted. Because more of them would have seen it, but no. Only 37. So anyway, Michael, Do the Right Thing. Did you like this movie?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, no, certainly. I did as well. Like, it's a film which is just, considering the films we have watched recently, just watching this film is like, wow, this is, like, the first time you watch it.
It's definitely a film.
Yeah, the first time you watch it is kind of like, Jesus, like, I'm going to have this on my mind for the rest of the day, thinking about it, and yes.
Yeah, well, that's why I watch things at night, Luke. And then there's less time for it to be on my day.
Just forget about it. So yeah, no, I did enjoy it, definitely. How many nitpicks do you have, Michael, for Do the Right Thing?
I've got 3.
I've got 1.
Yeah. So you go first.
I go first. Okay, so why does Spike Lee get so close to his sister?
Okay, I was thinking of that actually. I didn't write it down, but
because at first I thought, okay, that's his girlfriend. That's it's fine. And then he says, "Why are you being so mean to your brother Mookie?" And I'm like, wait, what? They're siblings? That's a bit weird, mate.
yeah.
Anyway, so
Yeah, I was thinking that.
that's mine. That's it.
Yeah. Well, mine are number one. People aren't wearing like maximally cooling stuff. When it's hot, I wear shorts. But you got these guys. I mean, all of them are wearing trousers, apart from Spike Lee, I guess. But a lot of them are wearing trousers and blazers and stuff. And I just think to
Blazers?
myself,
Who's wearing a blazer?
the mayor is wearing a blazer.
Oh, yeah, but the mayor's
And
a fucking drunk.
Sal has got he's got like a jumper with rolled up sleeves. So I mean, I don't know. Basically, all I'm saying is that I want to see. I mean, when it's like really hot in the UK. I mean, I know we don't have air conditioning, but then these guys are all outside, so who cares? I just like I come out of the shower if it's really hot. I just think there's really no need for me to put on clothes.
Okay, yeah, that's great.
So yeah, the two stereos don't even sound that loud when they have the little sound battle. Obviously, this is when I guess there's some kind of Puerto Ricans.
Puerto Rico. Yeah, I don't know.
Or let's just say Latinos. And Radio Raheem have a bit of a sound battle, and I was thinking, it sounds like quite quiet. They were able to just casually talk over it. They were like, "Oh man, we're going to lose this sound battle, guys." And in the background, you sort of just, and it also actually, I would say, is a more minor point, because I was originally going to say the two things kind of work well together, like the beat of Radio Raheem plus the whatever it was, jazzy Latina stuff of the gang.
Yeah.
But I was thinking, to be honest, I mean, it doesn't even matter that they go together because they're scarcely even drowning each other out.
Maybe that's the solution to racial harmony, combining the two forms of music. Yeah. That's
right. Okay, Luke, we all know that you think that Old Town Road with Billy Ray Cyrus ended racism. And finally, I mean, this one's a bit, but he's the line about Michael Jackson being black. Basically, I can't remember the exact context, but they're kind of talking about different. I think it's when he's talking to I'm not getting this right. Vino?
One of the Enos.
Gino. Anyway, yeah. Talking to him about like black celebrities versus white celebrities, and I think Mookie says "fuck Frank Sinatra," and we're gonna have to work this out, Luke. Is it Vino?
It's Pino.
Pino. I didn't even get that at all.
Yeah.
Pino says "fuck Michael Jackson," and that's supposed to be an attack on black people. But as we know, Michael Jackson, he wasn't going to stay black for long.
Okay, so you're criticizing Vino.
Yeah, I'm criticizing
Pino
for not knowing that Michael Jackson would turn black.
Yeah,
turn white.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
Even you're getting mixed up here.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I guess now
I'm
as
pretty
they
sure
say, live in glass houses.
In '89, Michael Jackson was black, right?
Yeah, well, we know because there's the Simpsons episode, which always confused me when I was growing up, genuinely, because obviously, I watched Simpsons when I was quite young. And there's the one where Homer thinks he's met Michael Jackson, and the whole thing is that the guy he's met who thinks he's Michael Jackson is white. And everyone's like, that can't be Michael Jackson. He's white. And like, I'd been growing up, this would be like 2003. It was on the time when the Michael Jackson trials were happening. That like was when I was first thinking about it. And obviously all I saw when I saw Michael Jackson was this just freaky looking white guy. And I genuinely think it's quite possible that at that age, I wasn't even aware that Michael Jackson ever was black and was just confused by the Simpsons episode.
Okay.
Because I just saw, Michael Jackson as this weird white dude.
Okay.
Not there's anything weird about being white, Luke.
No, okay.
It's just I always get accused of reverse racism.
So, yes, those are your nitpicks. All done?
Yes.
Right. Okay, we've already talked quite a bit about race. And we're just getting started. So, basically, I'll just explain the plot. Do the right thing. The story follows a Brooklyn neighborhood's simmering racial tension, which culminates in tragedy on a hot summer day. So yeah, that's it. Basically, it's just it's not nothing interesting happens in terms of like the plot, apart from right at the end when Sal's famous pizzeria, gets a trash can thrown through it and subsequently gets burnt to a crisp. And obviously, the film is just a build up to that point, exploring different characters, different perspectives, and all of that. Until you eventually reach that flashpoint.
Yes, it's what they call a day in the life film.
Yes.
Literally, it's a day. It starts in the... Well, actually, no, that's not quite true. I'm an idiot. Because it goes into the next day, doesn't it, Luke?
It does,
It starts in the morning, and then... basically...
It takes 24 hours.
Yeah, it does actually. Yeah, so
Yeah.
it goes from morning to morning. And tell you what, let's just assume that Mookie woke up earlier on the second day, and therefore we can say it takes place within 24 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll just assume that. So yeah, it's a day in the life. And honestly, I mean, there is pretty much nothing you can say about the plot without going into race. I mean, because there are things that happen which aren't related to race, I guess, at a push. Like, for example, I mean, the thing is kind of difficult, because almost everything is in some way related to race. Like, I was thinking about things that aren't related to race, and I was thinking, oh, they have the whole fire hydrant thing. And I was like, oh yeah, but the cops show up, and there's
I
the
think
Italian...
that's obviously...
Yeah.
Well, to get into that is like a metaphor for...
Yeah, for opening fire hydrants.
Yeah,
That's the metaphor for that. But I mean, but let's assume for a minute, even though I can't think of a single example of this, that there are things that happen that don't in any way relate to race. Even then, they're not really what you would call plot stuff. They're just things, which is fine, because as we know, Luke, only uncultured plebs insist that films have plots.
Yeah, I think that's what everyone says, isn't it?
Yeah. Except for uncultured plebs.
Yeah, obviously, yeah, that's a given. So yeah, I mean, again, like it's really hard to talk about this film without getting into the themes, because that's essentially what it is. Like you can't watch this film, which is why I think it's such a good film. You can't watch this film without your brain. I was going to do that Dave Rubin thing where he says like, "Oh, my brain is still in recovery mode from all these incredible ideas," or something. Do you remember?
I don't remember that, but it sounds like such a fantastically Dave Rubin-y thing.
Yeah.
To say.
It's like a 5-second clip of him just going like, "My brain is still in recovery mode from all these incredible ideas," and so yeah, basically the point I'm making is after watching this movie, that's the only thing you can think about is race and how it basically affects so many things.
At least three.
At least three things, and there's nothing else really I think we can talk about. So I think we should just jump in. To be honest.
Yeah, let's jump in, shall we? Well, I've got.
I think we should talk about like the things not connected to the main plot.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we could talk about is start us off. What's he called? So it's Pino, and his brother is called Vito. So Pino and Vito. Okay, so
yes.
Pino, played by John Turturro, he's the racist of the two brothers, and he says to Mookie that he calls Mookie the N-word or whatever, and then Mookie has a conversation with Pino about who's your favorite athlete, who's your favorite musician, who's your favorite actor, etc., and he says like Magic Johnson. Favorite musician, I think, is Prince. Favorite actor, I can't remember who he says is his favorite actor.
Eddie Murphy.
Eddie Murphy, that's it. Yes, Eddie Murphy. So yeah, all of these people who he likes, they're black. How can he call people the N-word when he thinks like that? So yeah, what do you think of that, Michael?
I think because it's his goddamn right. I mean, well, actually, it's funny because I'm sure that. Not that long before you suggested we watch this film, we were having a conversation about people who it might have even been about something like Colin Kaepernick, basically people who are racist but then like black athletes. And you said at the time, I remember, that you were like, well, the people who think of it that way, they don't think of black athletes as actually black unless they do something that's conspicuously relevant to their race, and in that case they're viewed negatively, again, as is the case with Colin Kaepernick. And when I was watching this film the first time to get my first impressions of it, I was thinking about that comment you made, and I was wondering if you'd stolen it from this film.
No, I have not stolen it from this film. No, I made that comment before watching this film. Yes, don't worry, Michael.
So what you're saying is you're smarter than Spike Lee.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a fraud. Again, like the people can go to, I guess the classic example would be American football games, which I think the people that compete in them are like 70% black, the players, and they can cheer on black players and then go home and like say incredibly racist things, and it's like how does that happen? And again, it's like they don't see them as people. That's the thing. They're like, oh, you're there for my entertainment.
Yeah,
and I think that's where Spike Lee kind of like, is making that point in this. It's like, how can you, you're a hypocrite and all that. How do you, like, it's cognitive dissonance. How can you say all these things about black people yet you love Magic Johnson? And it's because, well, as Pino is saying, well, he's not actually black. He's trying to justify it in his mind about how Magic Johnson isn't actually black. But yeah, I think it's similar to like I don't know if you've you heard about the controversy involving Laura Ingraham and LeBron James.
No.
It's okay.
I recognise the name Laura Ingraham, but I don't know anything.
So yeah, and I know about this because obviously LeBron James, very famous basketball player. He's black, obviously. He called out President Trump, said he was racist, something like that. And then Laura Ingraham is a Fox News host, so obviously she got mad at that. And she's racist anyway, but yeah, she said LeBron James should shut up and dribble. And so that is an example of how white people do treat like black people in entertainment, in sports. It was a perfect encapsulation. It was a great line from her to just sum up white people's feelings. It's like, shut up and dribble. Just like be the people that, or just be the person that we want you to be, an entertainer. Be a good athlete, but don't talk about like political stuff that makes me angry.
Yes, exactly. It's like that famous Kanye West.
Are you
line.
typing it in?
I want to remember what his exact words are.
This is crazy.
Okay. As long as I'm in polos smiling, they think they got me, but they would try to crack me if they ever see a black me. Which is, of course, Kanye West saying, it's obviously a very clear indication that he would go on to support Donald Trump. He's saying, when I'm acting white, white people like me, but when I act black, they hate me.
Yes.
So he obviously decided to lend his support to the least racist president, supported by the least racist people, because he cares that much about not being hated for the colour of his skin.
Yeah, and I remember he had another line which I actually quoted at Scott once. Because Scott
was talking about how racist he is, wasn't he?
The thing is, like, the irony was, like, we talked about Kanye West line, and I was talking about the fact that it has to do with race. And he said to me, which is what's ironic, it's like, oh, that's such a white person thing to say. And I was like, well, actually, and I hit him with another Kanye West line. It was about, like, I think it was from his, like, he was saying, like, people come to see me, like, this is not the line obviously, but he was talking about how people come to see him at like a concert and they don't actually listen to the words, and like everybody's white but they don't actually listen to what he's saying.
Oh, you're thinking of the Nirvana song, he's the one who likes all our pretty songs and he likes to sing along and he likes to shoot his gun but he don't know what it means. Don't know what it means. And
that what's that song by Bruce Springsteen? The best example.
Don't call me baby.
No,
I belong to me.
I shouldn't mention singing around you. No, it's Born in America. Or
yeah. We were born in America.
Fucking hell.
That's a different song.
That is a different song. Yeah, and Born in the USA. That's it. Not Born in America. Born in the USA. Born in the USA. Dun, dun, and
it's actually very critical.
Exactly. Yes, that is the classic example of that.
That's
song, yes.
Same example. The song "American Women," which was famously, originally, of course, by that band I've forgotten the name of, then covered by Lenny Kravitz. And when Lenny Kravitz covered it, he just kind of turned it into some kind of pro-American anthem. But then it was famously covered by Anal Cunt, and they sang it. And they actually, their version was much more true to the original meaning, because American Women, it's actually about a cynical attitude towards American interventionism.
Okay. I'm just getting the Kanye West line up. So it's from a Black Skinhead.
I know.
Yeah, and it's...
I keep it 300, like the Romans 300 bitches, or the Trojans.
Yeah, he really fucked that one up, didn't he? So it's like, came to see me in my black skin, saying, of course, people, come to... so here we go. Middle America packed in. Came to see me in my black skin, so obviously white people coming to see him in his black skin. Number one question they asking, fuck every question you asking.
Yeah, I got you. So.
Yeah, number one question. Yeah, they don't care about what he's actually saying. They just like his music. Which, yes, obviously, to sum up this whole point, yes, people are stupid and they like to separate the athlete from the actual who that person actually is, and they do it with African Americans. Or they try to do it anyway. And when the African American athlete doesn't comply, like Kaepernick or like LeBron James, they lash out because they don't want to hear it. They just want you to, as Laura Ingraham said to LeBron James, shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble.
Yes.
Dribble.
So essentially, that's the reality of the situation. That's the thing. Magic Johnson back in the day, I'm not sure about Eddie Murphy, but Magic Johnson wasn't like political and stuff. He didn't talk about like African American issues or whatever, like his teammate Kareem Abdul-Jabbar did, and obviously Michael Jordan didn't either. And he had that famous line, which actually he didn't actually say, but whatever, summed up his view on the world. Like Republicans, he was asked about, why don't you speak out about race issues and stuff, and he said Republicans buy sneakers too. And I don't think he said that, but yeah, it summed up his worldview. So yeah. So that's, I guess, that whole talk about African Americans and in entertainment and sport and the fans of these people, trying to figure out how can you be racist? Yeah, fan of Magic Johnson. Hopefully we covered that.
Magic.
Well. Yeah, it's magic.
I have something else this film brings up. It's kind of a double whammy because you've got the random gentrification guy. Who rides his bike. Those are white people, they're always riding bikes. Such hipsters.
Yeah, this is what I was going to move on to next, the next bit of gentrification. Yes.
So, I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really get much of a...
That's like 2 minutes.
Discussion, yeah. So basically, a guy goes by on a bike who's white, and... Anyway, so Bugging Out is then offended because I guess his shoes got run over by the bike tyre? Or something like that. I don't know, because here's the weird thing. I don't just randomly go around stepping on people's shoes. Well, actually, have you ever seen... I feel like it's stopped now, but there used to be like pranks used to be everything on YouTube, and you got like these really obnoxious pranks, often pranks that basically amounted to... Because remember the whole It's a Prank Bro?
Oh, yes.
And it was like, these pranks that were literally breaking the law or seriously inconveniencing people, and then you'd say, it's a prank, and that was a joke. And the thing is, like, there was one which was stepping on people's Jordans in the hood prank. And the thing is, it's not a prank though, because the guy would just step on people's Jordans and then obviously, get beaten up. And he'd say, it's a prank. But I mean, at the end of the day, the Jordans were stepped on. So I like to think if the, Do the Right Thing was made, in, I don't know, when was it really big? 2015. Then that's what would have happened. And it would have been, and you would have just had the white guy going, it's a prank, bro. But anyway, yeah, so basically, they accuse him of gentrification, and he says that he's from Brooklyn and that he's around there, and he also says it's a free country, anyone can live anywhere they want. So what do you think, Luke? Do you think it's a free country and anyone can live anywhere they want, or do you want to stop people from being able to live where they want to live?
Yeah, so obviously it's from African Americans' perspective, this is not a free country that they're living in. They can't just get up and move. And obviously it's dealing with the issue of this particular scene, gentrification. And Spike Lee was incredibly, Foresightful. That is the word.
I don't think that is, to be honest, I don't think that's a word, but it sounds close enough.
People get what we're saying. Spike Lee could see the future. And gentrification has just absolutely swamped Brooklyn. Like, it's gone from like a working class area, a black area, to now. What do you do when you think of Brooklyn? You think of like $1 million like fucking apartments with like rich white liberals living in it. That is.
Wait a minute. Question: is Williamsburg in Brooklyn?
Yes, it is. Yes.
Okay, because there's a song by the popular alternative rapper JPEG Mafia called Williamsburg, and it's all about gentrification.
Right, yes. So Williamsburg in Brooklyn, I believe that is like Elizabeth Warren, like heaven.
Yeah.
Williamsburg, to put it into perspective. The New York Times released that map of like all the donors from all the areas in the United States, and I think around Williamsburg, or definitely in Brooklyn, there was a large Elizabeth Warren section in there. So that's basically like it's quite weird. He's talking about gentrification in Brooklyn in this movie in 1989, and that is probably the most famous place in America when it comes to gentrification. Like, no area has been gentrified more than Brooklyn, and obviously, it's the guy. Do you remember what shirt he's wearing?
Uh, it was green, wasn't it, Luke? Does that help?
Yeah, it was green. It was.
I can't remember. I'm sure it said something silly on it.
This is great. I was thinking you may have looked this up, but I'm pleased to tell you this. So it was a Larry Bird jersey. Larry Bird. Have you heard of him?
I recognise the name.
He's a basketball player. Well, he was a basketball player in the 80s, and he played for a team. Can you guess what that team was?
The New York Knicks.
You should have probably guessed by when Bugging Out shouts go back to Massachusetts.
Oh, Boston Celtics.
Played for the Boston Celtics, because of the green, all that. And so, do you know about the city of Boston, Michael, and its reputation?
They hate tea.
That is true, but in regards to race,
well, I know they've got like lots of Irish people there, and I feel like Irish people are really racist.
Okay, how does the city of Boston view black people? Or how
badly?
Yes, badly. Exactly.
Okay, yeah, I can imagine that because, like, I always think. I mean, I'm not saying like, racist people are Irish. I would never say that. But I kind of like when I imagine someone from Brooklyn, I imagine someone being like, okay, I'm not going to do a Boston accent, but like, okay, so Bill Burr being like, I've had it with these people in my neighborhood, like that, exactly like that.
Yeah.
Basically, if I imagine someone from Boston, I imagine him saying the word "your people" to black people.
Yes.
I can imagine him saying like, I'm usually a polite guy, but your people, like that, but more Boston-y.
Yeah. Anyway, so as you may not know, Spike Lee, he's a basketball fan. He's wearing
of course he is. They all
are. He's wearing a Michael Jordan jersey, of course, at the start.
Yes.
Of the film, and if you don't know about Larry Bird and the Boston Celtics and why that scene is just so funny, basically, basketball is a black sport, right? Predominantly. The players.
Yes, I do know that, Luke. I can.
Yes.
I don't know that much about basketball, but I do know that.
70% of the players are black in the NBA, maybe even like 80. And in the 1980s, that was no different. You had like Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Isaiah Thomas, Michael Jordan, all these black players, who were really good. But there was one white player, Larry Bird, and he played for the Boston Celtics. Probably the most racist back then city that had a basketball team, and like just the fact that you had like a racist city, and they had the best white player in the league and the only like really good white player in the league. It was just really perfect. So that's Spike Lee just mocking Boston, mocking Larry Bird, mocking like the white people in general with that. And that's why I really do like that scene. Like he could have just worn a normal shirt, but no, Spike Lee decided to put a Larry Bird jersey on this white asshole.
6.7.5 foot. That's how tall Larry Bird was.
Yeah, and so I just as someone who's not a fan of the Boston Celtics, and someone who likes basketball, that I love that scene. I really do. So
yes, that does sound like a little Easter egg, as the kids are saying.
It's so thank God for Spike Lee for making that decision. When I saw that, I just I had a big smile on my face. That's great. So that's gentrification. Obviously, like it's an issue which still to this day, it's obviously increased rapidly since the 80s and the late 80s and early 90s, and now like the whole of Brooklyn is gentrified. And I don't know if that's a fact, but it seems to be a fact. So things are. I'm guessing Spike Lee and all the people who lived on that particular street in Brooklyn, I'm guessing they wouldn't be able to afford to live on that street anymore.
So with that said, is it worth spending some time to deal with the fact that a lot of people don't think gentrification is an issue, or should we just ignore that fact and just
it's from a African American perspective.
I'm just saying because like obviously I'm sure we get plenty of actually we probably don't get that many people watching these things, but like obviously, so gentrification also is definitely one of the most probably one of the most, I'm going to use the best term I can to describe this, inaccessible problems for white people to understand, in that like I think
exactly
more than anything else, because I think police violence You know, that's easy for a white person to understand. They might say, well, you know, you shouldn't be committing crime, stuff like that. But gentrification, a white person I don't think would have any concept of why it would be bad to have
Include an area,
your
yeah.
own. Yeah.
Well, I remember.
And of course, yeah.
So, just from my perspective, so I first learned about gentrification in geography,
Yes, I learned, yeah.
and like just reading it in textbooks, and it's like gentrification is when a traditionally, you know, poor area gets money invested and it becomes like a good area, and that the emphasis, although there was like a little thing of like, oh, residents, you know, they could be, you know, priced out.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, it's a good thing because. You know, it's like, oh, it's making an area better, investing money. That was the general theme, and that's the message I took. But obviously, gentrification focuses, it basically it hurts ethnic minorities a lot more. So it is also like a race issue as well, certainly in America. And so yeah, like again, if you've heard about gentrification or you know about gentrification and you're white, like you've probably never heard a different perspective on it, and so yeah, this is what this movie provides. Or back then, anyway.
Yeah. So basically, that's not. And the other thing I wanted to bring up, I mean, it's just related, but a different kind of area, which is the people complaining about. Well, also actually, I'll say on the subject of gentrification, you've also got the fact, for example, that Sal's. And I know we're going to talk a lot about Sal later on, but seeing as we're already on it, Sal obviously drives up to the pizza store. It's very clear he's not from that community, and he owns one of the most successful businesses in that community. And likewise, to move away from Sal, since we'll be talking about that a lot later, the Koreans also own a grocery, and that causes some antagonism from the black people there who obviously live in that community and live there all their lives, and they, you know, don't own another important business in their area.
Yeah, that's a good thing. Like the two business...
It's a good thing, is it, Luke, that black people don't own the businesses in their own communities?
Did I say that's a good thing? Did I say that?
Yes, you did. You said that's a good thing. I think what you meant is it's a good point.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, like you said, the thing is that, yeah, like you have two businesses in the neighborhood. Well, yeah, I guess like maybe Samuel L. Jackson counts as a business, but he just employs himself, so not really. You have the Koreans and obviously Sal, and you know they're two functioning businesses, and they're both they're in a black neighborhood. Yet they're not owned by black people. Like, and here's the thing: I was like, there's got to be in this movie, like what the stereotype about barbers, like a black barber shop. You know, when everybody, like those three people who were sitting out on the street, the three old black people. So they would be like in a barbershop talking, and I was like, oh, why isn't there a barbershop? Like, surely that would make sense in this kind of street. And I was like, oh, it's because Spike Lee, I think, wants to make the point about how black people can't even own like businesses in their own neighborhood. Yeah. And so you are right. Yeah.
And apart from that, I mean, I actually don't have anything else in general. I mean,
no, yeah.
So I've got quite a few things under. So have you got anything else in general?
No, I think those are the different, obviously, race-related points of the movie that aren't connected to the main point of the movie. But they all kind of contribute in a way, because obviously black people.
Yes.
They're not a fan of gentrification, obviously, because like it's chasing them out of their neighborhoods, or pricing them out, I should say. Not owning a business. Like they can't even, support themselves in their own communities, and obviously how racist white people are to black people, in general, with how they view athletes and sports stars.
Yeah. Because this film, or the premise of this film, I would say it's properly described by the term powder keg.
Yeah.
Which is to say that there's, and of course I don't think it's a coincidence. Of course, one of the classic literary devices is a pathetic fallacy where the weather reflects the mood, and of course this is in the hottest. I think it's described as the hottest day of the year.
Yeah, hottest day of the year.
Hottest day of the year. Everyone's really hot and bothered, and there's kind of the heat, as it were, is oppressive. There's an oppressive sense of it being hot. Everyone's all sweating. Everyone looks kind of uncomfortable, and then on top of that, you have all of this racial implications and identification of all these racial issues, and that is all contributing to the larger conflict of the film. Yeah. So do you want to talk about that? Things I've been talking about.
Yeah, no, it's obviously, like you said, it's a hot day in Brooklyn, and obviously the heat is a metaphor for the racial tensions in this community. And basically, you're right. It's a good description you had. It's like a powder keg, just right, ready to go off. And there is a point in the movie where various characters look at the camera and just like say like fucking racial slurs, loads of profanity about like the Koreans and the blacks and the Italians and the Jews, just like going at it. And it's like Samuel L. Jackson obviously tells everybody to cool down, you know. But yeah, so that is, you are right. Yes, it is a what did you call it? With a fallacy? What do you say?
A pathetic fallacy. Yeah. I don't know why it's called that, to be honest, because that's like not a nice term. It sounds like, because a fallacy is when something's wrong, and pathetic means like something. So I don't know why it's called pathetic fallacy.
Yeah,
I'm gonna look it up.
Obviously, so yeah, the racial tensions are simmering, just like the weather. It's perfect.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm kind of lying. So just for the record, pathetic fallacy is the attribution of human feelings and responses to inanimate things or animals, especially in art and literature. So not necessarily just weather.
Okay.
Any instance where the human emotions are reflected in inanimate things.
Yeah.
Basically, the real question, Luke, is, did Mookie do the right thing?
Well, I'll be skipping it a bit.
No, we're not. No, yeah. So
skipping over.
What do you? Yeah, I have some points, but what do you in general think?
Let's talk about the starting point of the the whole thing, which is Bugging Out, who by the way, have you seen Breaking Bad, right?
Yeah, is he Gus?
Yeah, he's Gus, which when I looked and I saw Giancarlo Esposito's in this movie, I was like, really? That guy? Who the fuck does he play? Like, he plays Bugging Out, and it's like, fuck me. Like, I never got that. Like, that was crazy.
Yeah. Well, he's a regular in a lot of Spike Lee films. So, yeah. I actually, to be honest, I mean, I don't know. I feel like, because obviously, I never even thought of Gus from Breaking Bad as being. This is going to sound like a Pino line, but I never thought of Gus from Breaking Bad as being black. And I don't mean by that like, oh, he was such a nice guy. I didn't think of him as black. I mean that he just looked kind of, like a dark-skinned Hispanic person. So yeah.
Well, yeah. Obviously, the name suggests Giancarlo Esposito. Yeah, some mix there, but anyway. So the central conflict obviously is Sal, who owns the pizzeria, doesn't want to put up anybody but Italian Americans on his wall, and he justifies it by saying, "Hey, I'm Italian American. These, are people from my community or my culture or whatever who have done great things. So if you buy a pizza restaurant, well, whatever, you can put, a bunch of brothers up there," as he says. But as Bugging Out points out, who funds his pizza business? Black characters. African Americans literally keep him in business. Without African Americans eating at his business, he would have to sell. He would lose money. He would go out of business. So, who is right, Michael, in that sense? Do you think Sal's right because he owns the business, or is Bugging Out right because, African Americans literally keep him afloat?
Well, I mean, one of the things obviously is that something you can't ignore is that Bugging Out tries to start a boycott, and pretty much all the black characters reject it.
Yeah.
And so I think that's worth kind of just, I'll give my own opinion, but I just think it's worth going through this context so I can just, walk you through it. And also, I mean, I guess you could say the only character who does agree is Radio Raheem, and he only agrees because being called Radio Raheem, he likes to play his... Is it called a radio if you're playing... Oh, whatever. He likes to play his radio wherever he goes. And he wasn't allowed to play it in Sal's space. So his motives aren't really that related. But basically everyone else... And what's the name of Mookie's sister?
Mookie's...
Prada? Pada?
What?
Claudia? Rada? Mookie's sister.
I thought it was like Jade.
Jada. I'm sure it's like Jada.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's an Ada thing. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But she basically says like, oh, can't you focus on something more important? So there's definitely an idea that even within the
it's just Jade,
black
by the way,
community there. Oh, okay, that's embarrassing. Even within the black community, there's a sense of it doesn't really matter. I think, to be honest, basically, I mean, he should have just done it as like a nice little gesture. Obviously, having said that, I think the way that Bugging Out tried to affect this change was very bad. And I guess you could say, and this is obviously going to come back to the entire film, that the proper way to deal with it would have been to try and foster a sense of shared community and kind of because you could say in a sense, I mean, yeah. So basically, I think at the end of the day, Sal, if he was being a maximally good person, if he was trying to be, the best person he can be, he would, as a show of good faith, put up some black people. Having said that, Bugging Out was pretty much in the wrong, as represented by all the characters who kind of dismiss him for his overzealousness in trying to affect this change. That's my opinion.
But Bugging Out represents a part of black people, as does Radio Raheem and Smiley, kind of, who all obviously gang up in Sal at the end. They all represent like this part of, demanding respect, basically, like demanding that, hey, or black people be heard. Like, how can you own a fucking pizza restaurant in a black neighborhood and not put like black people up on the wall? How can you do that?
Easily. Watch me do it right now.
Yeah,
I'll do it.
It's like
easy.
It's like, just this rage, which obviously Bugging Out has and Radio Raheem has, and it's very understandable.
Yes.
And so I guess like these black characters who, if they're not angry or, they're not, I guess they're just chilling eating pizza, they're like, oh, I don't care about that shit. But, if like there is a part of them that was like, yeah, why the fuck haven't you got these black people up on the wall? Like, why not? And
yeah.
And so I think it's understandable what Bugging Out is feeling. And yeah, obviously, I guess who's in the right in that situation? I guess they're both not in the right.
Both wrong? I think
wrong.
The better thing to say is that they're both wrong.
Yeah, but I think a compromise would be just like if you just stick like Martin Luther King and Malcolm X up in there, and
and don't burn the place down before you do it.
Yeah, like Smiley at the end, obviously, then everyone's happy. But yeah, obviously that doesn't come to pass, as we'll get onto. So yeah, I think throughout the movie, I think we've got to talk about Radio Raheem, Bugging Out, and Smiley.
Okay, yeah, we can talk about that now. Yeah, that's fine.
Like, I think they're all, like I said before with Bugging Out, he represents, part of African Americans who are like, just justifiably angry. I guess.
Radio Raheem represents African American. He's a clever metaphor for African Americans who want to play stereos everywhere they go.
Well, that's the thing. Like Radio Raheem, what song is he playing?
Fight the Power. He represents anarchism.
Fight the Power. Yeah, like I demand
rebel without a cause.
Well, that's the thing. He does kind of have a cause.
What, playing his radio?
Yeah, playing his radio. Yeah,
he should be called a radio without a cause.
Yeah. So yeah, he's demanding like. I mean, he doesn't demand it himself, but he does that whole love-hate thing. You remember that? Yeah, talking about how basically black people have to conquer their oppressors and all that, and playing Fight the Power. On the what was interesting watching it back a second time, the fire hydrant scene, which I found very interesting because I think it's a metaphor for everything getting cooled down. Like they turn the fire hydrant on. Racial tensions, they're not as big anymore.
Oh yeah.
What?
Sorry, I'm saying oh yeah because I can see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
I'm enthusiastically agreeing.
Oh, thank you. So yeah, the racial tension has been cooled off, but interestingly, remember Radio Raheem when he tries to walk through?
He gets none of it hits him because.
Well, he doesn't. They stop the fire hydrant for him, so he can just walk past with his boombox. So it's like, he's not getting cooled down. He's still, riled up.
He's still hot.
Yeah, he's still hot.
Obviously, then everyone ceases to be cooled down when the police show up.
Exactly.
Showing how, exactly. So that's really good.
And the police turn
you
the
might
fire
even
hydrant
say
off,
that the heat was a pathetic fallacy for the racial tensions.
As we mentioned.
Never get tired of that.
Yeah. Samuel L. Jackson as well, loving it. You can see him in the window. Of his house or whatever, just like loving what's happening. So yeah, and as you mentioned, the police literally turned the fire hydrant off to stop things getting cooled down. So yeah, I think there was something there, and also Radio Raheem when he drowns out the Latino music. Perhaps a metaphor. Maybe I'm going a bit too far. They're both competing to be heard. Like,
oh yeah,
and the reason why I say that is because like the Latino guy goes, "Okay, bro, like you win, whatever." So it's like, oh, Latinos admitting. They don't have it as bad as black people. I don't know. That's what I just got because it's a weird scene. Like he just walks up and
Well,
plays his boombox louder. I was like, why is that in there? So that's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah, well, I think also definitely the fact that Radio Raheem's playing a radio everywhere he goes, that is definitely, I think, reasonable to conclude that is him wanting to be heard. So yeah, I definitely think you're right about that. I don't necessarily whether or not that thing was specifically supposed to refer to tension between those two groups regarding whether or not they're heard, or whether or not it was just supposed to be another example of Radio Raheem wanting to be heard. But definitely, yeah, I do agree with you that the fact that he is playing his music really loud suggests he wants to be heard, and I guess also perhaps suggests the fact that, and this is obviously a huge theme in this film, but that he's not 100% clear on what he wants to say, because Radio Raheem, he doesn't have a thesis, he just has, because obviously his music is just fight the power, kind of on repeat, and he's playing it really loud and annoying everyone, and again,
he's demanding
idea,
to
I
be
guess,
heard,
there,
yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
And the idea might be that you don't necessarily have to justify the fact that you have something really clever and intelligently thought out to say in order to just angrily insist that you're heard. And I think that's definitely a theme in this film of kind of righteous anger.
Yes,
but
that's the phrase.
It goes against kind of common or logic. So like righteous anger, but it is kind of not totally coherent in a lot of ways, and that's kind of obviously reflected by the fact that Radio Raheem's just playing some loud music over and over again that just is a bit unclear in its message, apart from just an obscure reference to fighting the power.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, I think, yeah, so you've got those three characters, Bugging Out, Radio Raheem, and Smiley as well. Let's talk about Smiley, because like his character's a bit weird, but like I don't know if you remember him in the fire hydrant scene, Smiley, but
not really.
Well,
no.
Okay.
Don't they like drag him into it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
They drag him into it. So again, he's going on about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, with his fucking Polaroid photos or whatever they're called, and so I guess his character's like, hey, well, obviously one of the lyrics in the Public Enemy song, which I found really interesting. It's what is it? It's like, most of my heroes don't appear on stamps or whatever.
Oh, okay, yeah. To be honest, Luke, I never listened to the lyrics of important songs.
It's like pointing out how African American, like, I guess I don't know when MLK Day came into being, but maybe it wasn't. Yeah, maybe it was. I don't know, but basically, how people don't give Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, proper respect that they deserve, and so like he's, Smiley's like just, has all these photos, and he's getting pushed into the fire hydrant, and maybe again he's, I'm reading too much into it, but he's representing like, hey, come on, like, what about these guys? Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, these guys don't, get respect they deserve or whatever, especially not Malcolm X. And he doesn't like want to cool down either, but he has been cooled down by the fire hydrant. Again, that could be me reading too much into that, but that's what I saw with his character as well.
Yeah, I can definitely.
Yeah, so I guess, so the racial tensions simmering throughout the day, and then eventually it all culminates in just a conversation between Bugging Out and Radio Raheem. And they go in to Sal's Pizza. As you mentioned, Raheem was forced to turn down his music before going into Sal's Pizza, and that was Sal got really pissed at that. Do you remember? He got like properly pissed. He didn't like. So again, like, that's him just kind of, maybe I don't want to listen to your shit about like, fuck it, how hard you have it. Like, I'm trying to run a business. Yeah. Okay, so they walk in. Sal destroys his boombox, Radio Raheem's boombox, and again, like, he then erupts into. So obviously they're shouting at each other, they're fighting. Then Sal, who has basically, said throughout the movie how much he likes it here, how he doesn't share the same racist attitudes like his son does. He's very proud of the fact that the people of this area have grown up on his food. He says, I fed them since they were young, but he can still, even though all of this, and obviously he likes Mookie's sister as well. Even though, there's all of this, he can still erupt and say the N-word.
Yeah, so
times.
he... Yes. So, I think we should talk about Sal.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
So, let me just get all my Sal stuff together. Basically, I mean, like you say, the thing is, Sal is nice throughout pretty much the entire... I mean, basically, the thing is, he's sort of like your grumpy dad. But, like, he is obviously very nice in that, like, he, says all those really nice things about how he's happy that people go off in his food and all that stuff. He pretty much already covered that. And also, he gives people in the community money. I mean, he pays the mayor money to sweep the front of his house. Oh, sorry, the front of his store. He pays what's his face, Smiley money.
Yeah.
And then obviously he's employing Mookie and being very patient. We'll talk about Mookie later.
Yeah.
And then obviously he's got like a quite friendly relationship with Jade.
Mm-hmm.
And it seems like I don't know. I mean, is there much? I think, like, honestly, in my opinion, I guess there probably... I don't know if there's much to that, to be honest. I mean, or is it just that he's attracted to her? Because I'm just wondering if there is kind of supposed to be a racial message there. Because obviously, I mean, it's definitely true that the eroticization of black women is a thing. Having said that, that's not really the impression I got from it. So I don't know. Do you think there's anything more to the fact that he's attracted to Jade, or is it just his character?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really not sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, maybe there is, but I don't think there's enough to, like, hang your hat on.
Yeah, so I agree. Anyway, but basically he's all good. And obviously he is, let's say, obstinate and set in his ways. For example, not wanting to put people on the wall, and also the fact that he's, quite stingy with his pizza. But none of that is like anything serious. And then, of course, like I say, the line where he basically just goes on a racist rant comes somewhat out of nowhere. I have one thing about it which I find interesting, because obviously, I think we can all agree. I mean, maybe we should just clarify this. So yeah, we're both agreeing Sal was fine up until that point. I think we can also both agree that Sal probably shouldn't have gone on a rant filled with racial expletives.
Sal's fine up to a point, but he's still, like, I think when he's insensitive, obviously, when he's saying to Bugging Out, like, no black people on the wall, and he's like, open your own business, and he's like kind of not understanding the fact that economic discrimination against black people has been, like, institutionalized for ages in America, for forever in America, and like and so he just represents the gay guy. He just, like, doesn't understand.
Hold on, Luke. It sounded like you just said he represents the gay guy.
No, I definitely did not say that.
It sounded like you said he represents the gay guy.
I said he's somebody who doesn't understand. I don't know where you got gay guy from.
I don't know where I got gay guy. Okay, well, anyway, but yeah, so the thing is, this is what I find interesting, though. Obviously, Pino says the N-word in front of Mookie, and he, doesn't say it in a nice way. He says, something like lazy N-words. And that's kind of just brushed off. And I find that interesting for two reasons. Number one, I guess there's a question of, why, because obviously if the film's logic is, I think primarily, I mean, if you're going to say that Sal did anything bad, then you have to say that the number one thing he did that was way worse than anything else he did was go on a rant filled with racist expletives. Because everything he'd done up until that point, he was pretty much a good guy. But then he went on a rant filled with racial expletives. And then you kind of have to explain why it is, or I think it's worth looking at why it is that moment there is seen as a very kind of dramatic, pivotal moment. And yet, by contrast, when Pino did the exact same thing very casually, the film sort of just ignores it. I mean, the film doesn't really act as if Pino saying blah, blah, blah N-words is something that particularly matters, or obviously it's interrogated. So I was wondering, do you think, because I think there's an obvious reason, which would be that Sal was supposed to be one of the good guys. Yeah. That's kind of the only so whereas you kind of expect it from Pino, I don't know.
Exactly, you're right, exactly. So Pino's, he's constantly racist. He gets a lesson well, he tries to get Lawson talked to him by Mookie about how would you like Magic Johnson and all that. So it's clear like he's racist and he's meant to be seen as the guy who's, just a bit like stupid or whatever. But Sal's meant to be the good guy. And so when Sal says that N-word after, like we said, he's very proud of the fact that kids have grown up on his food for 25 years or whatever. But when Sal says that, it means more. It's like, even like just the fact that I think in these deprived communities with, different races, like there is like, I guess a myth, which is like, oh, we all live peacefully together, like we can all coexist. But, Spike Lee just basically says, like with Sal calling Radio Raheem the N-word, like, if you push people like Sal was pushed, he'll still revert back to like that racism. Like it's impossible to get over that racism which exists in these communities. So yeah, that's what I think he's trying to show there.
Yeah. I agree. Yeah, I think the only other thing that I bring up though is that if we're talking about was Sal a really bad person? The one thing which I think is worth noting is if he was around people who... Because think about it, okay, Sal's got on the one hand, and I'm not trying to be a Sal apologist, but I think it's worth looking at this. On the one hand, he's got the black people who use the N-word liberally, although I don't know if they do in this film, actually, that much. Maybe they do. I mean, to be honest.
No, I don't think they do.
But either way, in general, black people use the N-word a lot, and obviously that's not a reason why white people choose it. And on the flip side, he's got his... Pino, I always get it wrong. I keep wanting to call him Gino. Just makes so much more sense to me. He's got Pino, who uses the N-word liberally, although for bad reasons. But I think you could probably explain why it is. Because, for example, I would never really it would never occur to me to use the N-word if I was, angry or anything like that. But part of that is because I don't generally hear the N-word used casually, either by white racist people or black people. I mean, I have not, obviously I grew up in a reasonably diverse area, and there were plenty of black people around, and they did use the N-word, but it wasn't like, I didn't live in some area which was predominantly black. And I think Sal, obviously, he hasn't had anything that would inhibit his use of the N-word in the way that we have. So I think it kind of does make sense in that context that Sal, when he is angry, would revert to that term which he's been surrounded by for a long time. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not, at the end of the day, obviously, that doesn't make it okay. But I'm just saying it kind of explains why Sal would do that. And it's sort of like, I was thinking to myself, after I watched it, because like you say, it is a film that stays with you. And I was kind of thinking about the different stuff. And I was thinking, Sal would have heard this word used a lot. It kind of does make sense that if he was angry, it would be a word that came into his head. I mean, he's been around Pino and heard him saying it so much, and I don't know. Yeah. So obviously, yeah. I mean, it's kind of a bit of an empty thing to say because it doesn't come close to making it an okay thing to say, but at the same time, it does explain why he might say that, whereas us progressive types would think, "Wow, I'd never say that." Maybe it would be different if we grew up around a bunch of racist Italians.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Okay. So I think we should move on to the fight now that happens.
Fight.
So,
actually, that moves on to something else I want to say about Sal, just because it's related to the fight. Well, maybe, okay, yeah. I mean, this was probably jumping ahead into what you were going to say, but I did want to bring up the fact that it kind of seemed as if it was implying that Radio Raheem was going to kill Sal. I think there was a line in that, which was like, you're going to kill him, and it was kind of like a serious thing. I don't know. Basically, I just thought that was worth bringing up because it seemed like, because you're on the subject of the fight did seem really intense, and
yeah,
I guess that's just I don't know. Talk about your thing.
I don't know if Radio Raheem was in the process of killing Sal. I don't know. That's just, they were were at each other's necks or whatever.
Yeah.
So who the fuck knows? But anyway, so obviously, Radio Raheem. So the police come. Radio Raheem gets choked by the police, and then obviously people are mad. Obviously, the fight between Radio Raheem and Sal spilled out onto the street, so everyone can see what's happening. Everybody sees what happens to Radio Raheem.
Fight.
Yeah, it's just something which, I think everybody knows now, but I don't think people knew back in the late 80s, or certainly white people in the early 90s. Certainly, I think before the LA riots about the beating of Rodney King, about how badly black people were treated by the police and how a police officer could literally just like murder like Raheem like that just on the street, and he probably wouldn't even lose his job. But yeah, so
yeah, but he get a paid suspension, Luke.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the punishment enough. I think we can all agree.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, that's the thing. Even like the fellow officers say, you know, that's enough or whatever, which is interesting.
I think one line worth bringing up is that Smiley, it is Smiley, isn't it?
Smiley, yeah.
Says that one of the officers was black. I actually didn't notice that, but if Smiley says it, I'm going to believe it. So I guess maybe, I mean, it's a very minor thing, but I guess it's just pointing out that policemen can be black, and that sometimes the policemen who are black are also bad.
Sometimes they're more bad than average because they want to prove to their white colleagues that they're on their side.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
That's the what was that? Straight Outta Compton. That's it. There's the black police officer who arrests Ice Cube is like properly, you know, abusive and abuses his power in front of his white colleague. So yeah, I think that was the message there. So yeah, it can happen, obviously. And so yeah, basically, all the onlookers are enraged about Radio Raheem's death, and naturally they blame Sal and his sons. And here we get the most interesting moment of the film.
Yes, the most interesting moment of the film.
Mookie grabs a trash can and throws it through the window of Sal's pizzeria.
Yes, he does grab a rubbish bin. You're right.
I wanted to call it the proper name in America. A trash can.
You need to practice when you're in Washington.
Exactly.
If they hear you saying rubbish bin, I'll throw your tea into a harbour.
No. Luckily, I don't drink tea, so I think I'll be okay. So yeah, they everyone rushes into the restaurant and destroy it, with Smiley setting it on fire. And so here's the question, Michael, that the movie poses: did Mookie do the right thing?
Okay, I have something I want to start off with for context. Mookie is a dickhead. Not necessarily for what he does here, but I think it's worth bearing in mind for context that Mookie is clearly just an arsehole. Well, not necessarily, not the world's biggest arsehole, but like the thing I was thinking about is the fact that it's not as if. So flash forward to my conclusion a bit, but my conclusion is definitely going to be that I struggle to see how Mookie can be seen as like righteous, even if what he did was okay, because he's just basically okay. He's late to work. He's then on the phone at work, even after repeatedly being told to stop. And then he asks for an advance. It goes home, and apparently, according to his sister, he does that often. And then he has a break to bang his girlfriend. And then on top of that, he is apparently something of an absentee father. And all of those things suggest Mookie, he's not some like great guy. And I think that's like important context to bear in mind, because I think he's not a hero. I don't know what you think about that, but I was thinking to myself, like, Mookie, he's not like some kind of guy who's like, oh yeah, I love Mookie. I hope everything works out well for Mookie. I was just thinking, I mean, like, at the end of the day, of course, lots of people are kind of like that. I mean, to be honest, I think like most people aren't that cheeky, to use a mild term, that they would straight up just be apparently taking multiple breaks from, oh no, Pino is like, no, stop spending 90 minutes to deliver a pizza around the corner. Clearly, he's just objectively terrible at his job, and yet he's still getting paid by this Sal guy, and he's just taking advantage of the situation. So he's clearly not a good guy, and that leads, and that kind of complicates the question. Because the thing is, okay, Mookie, this is the second thing, shows no interest in racial justice throughout the entire film. Which makes things even more complicated in terms of just like his character, because like I say, he's just not some kind of upstanding individual, and he's not some kind of hero, and there's nothing about him that I think anybody should really try to emulate in terms of just the way he lives his life. Yeah. And on top of that, he doesn't seem to care that much about racial justice. And it does kind of lead to the question of, obviously, why, well, it makes the question of why he does what he does much more interesting. Because it's like, is he, I think the message is supposed to be that he kind of just realizes it's bad, and, okay. See, it's very complicated. But the thing that I think is worth noting is that I definitely think that the film's constant kind of theme of misdirected or somewhat incoherent anger comes to a head here. Is that term? Comes to a head?
Yeah.
Seems right. Here. Because I think at the end of the day, the proper response to the police choking out Radio Raheem is not to burn down Sal's pizzeria. Because obviously Sal, I mean, basically the last bad thing Sal did was break somebody's radio and say a racial expletive, which is bad, but it's not killing somebody. And like we kind of already said, Sal, well, that's why I brought up the context of the fact that Sal has been surrounded by, kind of a heavily racialized society. So you can kind of see why if he does get angry and lose his temper, it might be the case that does get expressed in a rather unsavory way. But and then obviously, even if you want to ignore that, the fact that Mookie has basically just destroyed his place of work, so clearly it wasn't a very clever move there. So it does seem to me like the message is supposed to be that Mookie has this anger, and I suppose maybe it's supposed to be he's kind of repressing it and ignoring it, and that perhaps the reason why he's not a very good person in terms of like just his work ethic and the way he acts around his family and things like that is supposed to be because he has this sort of depression at the fact that his situation is really crap. And then when Radio Raheem dies, then he thinks, hey, maybe the reason why I have this shitness in my life and, I've got a crappy job and I'm not motivated to work hard at it or enjoy it and stuff like that, it is because of this injustice I'm suffering from. And that's why he does it. That's my theory, which I get from putting together all the different things about his life, that basically he decides in that moment that the reason why he's, not a great person is in some way related to racial injustice, and that he's in a shitty situation and he's in a kind of shitty neighborhood, and that's why he does it. That's my theory. I don't know.
Yeah.
Which doesn't necessarily answer the question, does he do the right thing? I guess the answer is no, he doesn't really, which I think is somewhat of an uncontroversial take. But what do you think?
So,
because that took a long while to explain, but it is because it's a really complicated.
Yeah. So again, so he throws the trash can through Sal's window, and I was thinking like Mookie, you did this to distract the crowd, right? You did this so Sal could get the insurance, right? And that was my initial feeling, just hoping that he did do it for the right reasons, but I think he just did it because he was pissed off and angry. And
yeah, well, I don't know if you know this, but Spike Lee has actually explicitly come out. I don't know how I ended up hearing this, because I don't think I was even kind of looking for it. I was just looking for, I was looking for stuff about the film, but yeah. Spike Lee has explicitly come out and said that that's not why he did it. So because he'd heard that kind of idea and he'd been like, no, that's not why he did it.
Which,
so there we go.
Which idea?
Sorry, distracting the crowd. So basically there has been a theory, lots of people have said, the reason why Mookie did it was to distract the crowd from Sal and instead direct attention to his shop. And Spike Lee said, no, it's not.
Exactly. Why. So that's why I looked at the Wikipedia page and he said something, but that was my reaction. Maybe because I was just trying to justify, wait, you don't make me think you're a bad person. Don't because that would be bad. But that is from my own, I guess, white perspective, because I'm I don't know, because as Spike Lee says, no person of colour, he has only ever been asked by white viewers whether Mookie did the right thing. Black viewers do not ask that question.
No, well, actually, no. I think I'm right in saying actually, and I think this is an important distinction. Okay. What he actually said was that he's never been asked by a white person. Sorry, he's never been asked by a person of colour, why did Mookie do what he did? So, which is a slight distinction. So, in other words, I'm going to assume, for example, that there are probably black people out there who don't think Mookie did the right thing. But I think, for example, the implication is that black people universally understand why Mookie did what he did, but don't necessarily think he did the right thing. Whereas white people, I tell you what, if you find out I'm wrong...
Well, it just says here in Wikipedia, Spike Lee has remarked that he has only ever been asked by white viewers whether Mookie did the right thing.
Really? Okay, well, I heard... I'm sure I heard a different thing for that, but let's just assume I'm right.
No, because I don't think... if it says explicitly the opposite, I don't think we should.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Well, you know what, Luke? I mean, that's your prerogative. Okay, we'll let the audience decide whether or not they want to just go with what the facts say or what I say.
So Spike Lee says he has not been asked by black viewers whether Mookie did the right thing, and here's the thing: Lee, he believes the key point is that Mookie was angry at the death of Radio Raheem, and the viewers who questioned the right's justification are implicitly failing to see the difference between the property and the life of a black man. That's what he said. So that's why black people, I guess, don't ask the question, because they were like, yes, he's fully within his right to do that, and he did the right thing, because there is a righteous anger, which is the phrase we mentioned before. Like, this fucking person is just, a black person has just been killed, and what the fuck? Like, how can this happen? Like, how? Like, what the fuck is going on? It's just an anger which, like I said, it is righteous. And like you said before, Mookie doesn't really seem interested in racial justice. But again, like, maybe it's more powerful that he's the one that did it. Because again, he's like not interested in racial justice, but he's just had it. He just like snaps, like throws the trash can. And so again, I go back to my justification, which obviously isn't true. Like, did he do the right thing? I was like, oh, please tell me you did that for other reasons. And I'm like, well, again, like, because initially my thinking was, if you did that and that it wasn't because you were trying to distract the mob and save Sal's life, well, then that's a bad thing that you did. But again, that was my initial reaction. But having seen Spike Lee's comment, like, obviously being white and not black, I can completely understand how people could think, like, automatically, yeah, like, he did do the right thing. Because, like, imagine just you've seen like somebody just get murdered literally on the street, and there's nothing you could do about it, like, and it didn't have to happen, and like and the amount of shit that has happened to you in your life, and you're just like so pissed off at everything, and yeah, I do think like it is a good litmus test, or maybe Rorschach test is a better phrase, I don't know, like, what does your mind go to when you see that scene, when Radio Raheem gets killed and then Mookie throws the trash can through the Sal's Pizzeria, because the events happen one after the other. If your mind focuses more on, well, how could Mookie do that, then it's kind of like, well, I guess, don't you care about the death of a young black guy at the hands of the police? I mean, I'm reading from Roger Ebert's review here, and so I'm going to go through this bit, which I found quite interesting. Not everybody thought the film was so even-handed. This is Roger Ebert speaking. I sat behind a woman at a press conference who was convinced the film would cause race riots. Okay, we'll get to that in a bit. Some critics agreed on the Critterton DVD of the film. Lee reads from his reviews, noting that Joe Klein in the New York Magazine laments the burning of Sal's Pizzeria, but fails to even note that it follows the death of a young black man at the hands of the police.
Yeah, I think, I could see that. So people kind of thinking like, focusing on that fact of like being, it's because in a way that is kind of true. And to be honest, I think there is a sense in which, because this film, it does have kind of an emotional resonance,
mm-hmm.
and that emotional resonance doesn't come from Radio Raheem dying, for me. For me, the moment where I started kind of feeling like, obviously it wasn't like the most emotionally intense film ever, but the moment where I started to feel kind of like a sense of sadness inside was when they were destroying Sal's Pizzeria. But I am going to go ahead and blame Spike Lee for that. No, but I think part of the reason for that is that Radio Raheem's death happens in the midst of this just massive confusion, because the big fight is just so kind of confusing, and like those different things are happening, and I think that's supposed to reflect like the actual kind of confusing nature of racial tension, and basically how like it's not always easy to tell what's going on, and it's all just a big jumble. That's my theory. And obviously in the midst of that, Radio Raheem dies, and in my opinion, the reason why I didn't really feel sad about Radio Raheem's death is because it was just happening in the middle of so much other stuff going on that I sort of couldn't even focus on it. And then the flip side is when Sal's Pizzeria gets burned down, the film focuses on that, so you kind of get a sense of like, that's sad. But obviously, so having said that, I think in a way, maybe it's a bit disingenuous of Spike Lee to say that, because I think the way that the film is structured and the tone of the film makes Sal's Pizzeria being burnt down stand out more than Radio Raheem's death, just because of the tone of the film and the way that it focuses on Sal's Pizzeria being burned down much more. Having said that, of course, if you're a reviewer, then you should bring it up. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of my opinion. I'm kind of like,
yeah, I guess so. Yeah,
I'm going to be a rational centrist geek, which I think is what everyone likes.
Well, yeah, I guess obviously, I think we should talk about in the question of did Mookie do the right thing, and I'm not going to say obviously, but I guess if you're black, you would just assume like, yeah, he does do the right thing. But
yeah,
here's the thing: would MLK say he did the right thing? Because obviously, at the end of the movie, there's a quote from MLK and there is a quote from Malcolm X, and the two quotes contradict each other. MLK is basically saying violence is bad. Malcolm X is saying like violence against a community. Sorry, violence after a community is basically being abused. That is self-defense, as he would call it. So it is, and obviously self-defense is okay because you're defending yourself. So Malcolm X would say what Mookie did was the right thing. So is that the contrast you think in the movie?
Well, yeah, okay, so I have a few things. Well, I'll focus on that specifically. Here's the thing, though. Malcolm X, whatever you think about him, in terms of like his, obviously, differences with Martin Luther King, he was very much part of that sort of the black man needs to lift themselves up by being kind of better, if you get what I'm saying. So the impression I always got from Malcolm X is that his mentality is sort of black people need to own their own businesses and stuff like that, but also, for example, black people need to be better fathers. And because obviously, I mean, there's no way around the fact that it's an objective truth that most single mums are black, at least in America, and obviously that's probably less true because I believe obviously it's obviously, it's relative. And obviously I think that's a cultural thing, and I suspect even, for example, in places in Europe and other places where blacks are a minority of the population, and obviously in Africa it's probably completely different, but in America, so you could say, for example, so in other words, what I'm saying is...
I'd say it's like economic, rather.
Cultural economic, that's what I should have said, because obviously culture... But anyway, so I think the thing is that Malcolm X is the kind of person who would say that, yes, black people are victims of oppression, but I also think it's not unreasonable to say that Malcolm X would say black people need to be better, and I don't really like using that term, but in other words, like black people need to kind of lift themselves up and empower themselves, not in like and I don't mean that in a lift yourself up by the bootstraps way, but obviously, for example, I mean, Malcolm X didn't want white people to help with his movement, so he didn't, he wanted the black empowerment to come from black people. And basically what I'm saying here is that, in other words, I think if Malcolm X were to look at an example of a bunch of black people having this massive riot, which doesn't really serve any purpose or achieve anything, and actually just destroys something, I don't think even Malcolm X would agree with that. I think Malcolm X, for example, would agree with bugging out maybe on the boycott thing. So Malcolm X might be the kind of person who would say, you know what, we need black businessmen owning these communities, so we're going to boycott or we're going to form our own communities, or he might say, we need someone to start their own pizzeria, or something like that. Or maybe he'd be kind of encouraging people to go to a place that's South African cuisine. Malcolm X would go, why is it that we go to eat the white man's cuisine? Why don't we have places that serve Ethiopian food and stuff like that? That's what I can imagine Malcolm X saying. I couldn't imagine Malcolm X being like, yeah, burn down that random person's place of business.
Well, it's not random, though, is it?
Okay, yeah, sorry. Yeah, it's not random, but I still, either way, I don't think that...
So the end quote is Malcolm X advocating violence in self-defense in response to oppression. Would that not be exactly that? What happened?
Yeah, but the thing is, that at the end of the day, like, Sal wasn't oppressing them.
Well, no, but that's the thing. He wasn't he wasn't directly oppressing them, but the fact that it's a black neighborhood and he's white, surely that has to count for something. Yeah. Okay. I think let's see if I can get this right. So, Sal, obviously the position he's in is kind of bad, that he's in that position, that he is somebody who, is not black, but he owns a business in a black neighborhood and he's basically making money out of black people's pockets. That's all bad. But at the same time, Sal can't really change that. And also, getting rid of Sal, I don't think solves the underlying problem. Because I think the thing is, Malcolm X was a very intelligent person. And I think Malcolm X had a good understanding that, for example, when we're talking about people being violent. I think so. Malcolm X, like the Black Panthers, for example, would support black people arming themselves, and especially in the South, and places like that. Malcolm X would support, in other words, black people doing displays of force to show like we're going to be, we're not going to take your crap. But I don't really think Malcolm X would be like,
I think in a way Malcolm X, he's too smart to be like, let's attack this person who, yeah, sure. I mean, he's higher up the social ladder than the black people. But it's not, like I say, his fault. It's not Sal's fault that he's there running that business. And yes, he shouldn't have said a racist word. That was a bad thing to do. But at the same time, I think, again, Malcolm X, when he's talking about fighting back, because you have to bear in mind, one of the things that I remember Martin Luther King said is he was like, I don't like people firebombing my house, but I love those people. And that was obviously, you know, kind of peak MLK in terms of him being somebody who supports, it basically says, you know, I'm going to love people. My love's going to defeat people's hate.
Yeah.
So he's saying, you know, people are firebombing my house, I'm love them. And I think, so Malcolm X would then say, no, if someone's firebombing your house, you station people with weapons outside your house. And if someone comes onto your property with a Molotov cocktail, you shoot them because it's your right to defend yourself as, you know, a free person, as somebody who has a right to national self-determination, stuff like that. That would be kind of, and obviously that's talking about somebody firebombing your house. I think, Malcolm X would not have said, if somebody owns a pizzeria in your place and says a racist word, and then some police shot. I mean, for example, I think Malcolm X would probably be more like, let's all march down to the police station and go protest, which he does in, have you ever seen Spike Lee's Malcolm X biopic?
No, I haven't, no.
Okay, yeah. Because I was actually, I remember I was wondering whether or not we'd have enough to talk about when we watch this film, which is hilarious. But I was saying that maybe we could watch one of Spike Lee's other films about race, and I actually brought up his Malcolm X biopic as something which would be worth watching. But basically, in the Malcolm X biopic, one of his comrades, as it were, gets arrested, and he basically gets all of the people at his mosque, he's a kind of Muslim minister at this point, he gets them all together and they just march down to the police station, and he says, you know, we demand, you know, you brought this guy in here, he'd been beaten up by the police and he'd been put in a jail cell, we're not leaving until he gets medical attention. And the cop's like, nah, screw you, and he's like, we're not going to leave, and then they just stay there until eventually the police cave in. And that seems like something Malcolm X would do. So Malcolm X would be less likely to attack Sal and more likely to go, hey, let's go to the police station and do that. So I think basically Malcolm X doesn't have a problem with violence and doesn't have a problem with a display of force, but I also think he was smart and would have understood what the real problem is. Whereas I think with this, you know, with the destruction of Sal's property, is he much more like, obviously Sal, not the best person in the world, not a perfect example of racially just virtue, but not the real problem. That's kind of my opinion on that. But yeah,
not the real problem, but again, a representation of the problem, which I'll get back to.
So I think at the end of the day, it makes sense to me that the people did that, because I think, and I think that's kind of an important point actually, that I don't think it's reasonable to expect people who are victims of social and racial injustice, racial is social injustice, of social injustice, to always be able to perfectly articulate the precise nature of their oppression.
Yeah, obviously.
And I think that's something which is like, this film kind of gets a good idea. So basically one of my things which I kind of got from this film, which I made very clear at multiple points, is I think that this film has a message of, you know, these people aren't these people. That's just something about saying the word people when you're talking about race just makes it sound so bad. That these people don't have this really airtight understanding of racial politics, and I don't think, you know, basically it falls down to things like fight the power or why aren't there black people on the wall. So I think that, but then I also think that's kind of justified by the fact that, you know, if you're being oppressed, you're not necessarily going to articulate that without coherent.
Yeah, not everyone can be as smart as Malcolm X.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So I think, and I guess you could also say that this film's kind of, if there was a lesson here, I think maybe the lesson would be that this is why black leadership is a good thing, both for black people and white people. Because if you don't have black leadership that can say, look, here's the problem, it's a kind of systemic institutional problem, and let's focus on that. If you don't have that, then people are just going to be angry and they're going to attack other, you know, random people. And the thing, I think this is
the LA riots. I'm just thinking you say that. Yeah.
Oh, well, you know what? I was going to bring up something to do with the LA riots in a way, because they almost attack the Korean place, and I think I'm right in saying it's the mayor who comes in and says, look, they didn't do anything. Why are you attacking? Why are you going to attack them? And they all agree. And I think maybe the implication there is, of course, that they could have attacked the Korean place. I mean, if no one would have stopped, if they kind of would have tipped one way instead of the other, and someone would have, you know, gone to attack the Korean place, they could have done that because they had this anger at the Korean place. And obviously the mayor, maybe you could say, represents kind of a sensible leadership, and he's saying, no, don't do that, you know, don't attack the Korean place. And obviously I bring that up because the LA riots, even though it was ostensibly a race riot between, or of black people against kind of white people, basically, the most famous thing, to my knowledge, to have come out of the LA riots was actually the conflict between black people and Korean people.
Yes.
And you get the famous roof Koreans who camped out on their stores with rifles and defended it. But obviously, and I think, it's kind of funny that was sort of almost predicted, except in reality, rather than what happens in this film, which is that people go, oh yeah, the Koreans don't really have anything to do with this. They're not really doing anything too bad to us. Instead, in reality, actually, the mass mob, which didn't really have a coherent leadership or anything like that, did attack.
Yeah,
the
because the
Koreans,
anger just boiled over, and the anger just couldn't be contained. Over. Yeah, and that's the thing. Like,
and I think that's the problem.
And with this thing, like, would burning the Korean store be the right thing? I can definitely say no, it wouldn't have. I don't. Yeah. I think that question is a lot less ambiguous than throwing the trash can through the Sal's Pizzeria. But could I understand if they burned that Korean place? Sure, I could understand it. Just like understand the LA riots.
Yeah, and also, it comes from, and it is kind of a progression. So, because, obviously they probably wouldn't just burn the Korean pizza, the Korean pizza place, the Korean place down from nothing. Yeah, exactly. But it's kind of like, if it escalates and it escalates and escalates. And it's I have one more thing to say about this, but...
Well, no, I think that's the key thing with this movie, just having that empathy, having that understanding. And at the end of the movie, just to sum it all up, I guess, this particular, well, just the plot in general and the themes, I just got an overwhelming feeling of sadness, and that was it when I finished it. It wasn't like, it was just sad. I was just, because what I think is really good is they cut to the scene of the morning after things have died down, and you can see the wreckage of Sal's Pizzeria, and on the news, or what is it, Samuel L. Jackson? I can't remember. It's like the police are trying to work out how this happened or whatever. What made this happen?
I think it is.
And obviously,
I think it is Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, and that question is just it's very complicated how this happened, and or maybe it's very simple, a community is being oppressed, and so it's just overwhelming, just feeling of sadness.
Yes. Yeah, I just want to say, regarding kind of a summary for did he do the right thing? For me, and I don't know, I think this is largely just my interpretation, but I feel like this film sort of picks apart the question itself. Because for me, if I were to summarize kind of my thoughts on did he do the right thing, I would say that the idea is that in a society that is so unjust at its core, and obviously America was founded by people who owned slaves, it was founded on slavery, it was built off the backs of slavery, in a society that's so unjust at its core, the question of does an individual do the right thing, does an individual act morally, is almost kind of the wrong question to ask, and it kind of, that very framework falls apart, because it's there's inevitably just going to be so much anger, and there's going to be no place to direct it. So I kind of feel
the question is wrong, but I guess that is
that
is the title of the film, so you're forced kind of to ask that question.
Yeah,
and I guess that is the question that is it is the wrong question to ask, but it is again a question which is, I guess, naturally where your mind goes to when Mookie did that. It is naturally where it goes. It is because it's because you can't always look at things. It's an emotional question. How did he do what was right here? And
does he do what feels right? Yeah, almost.
Yeah. Well, he definitely did what felt right. And again, that the bombing of the pizzeria, did it help anyone? No. But again, you can understand it, and you can say, imagine just being in that situation. Just imagine being how pissed off you would be, and how just because you basically what even though you don't realize it, you basically have this feeling of my life is completely worthless. My life can just be ended so quickly, and nothing can be done. My life is, like I said, worthless. And so imagine the anger that comes from experiencing that.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, actually, I think a good analogy for this in a way is sort of the Israel-Palestine conflict. Because undeniably, there are, terrorists in Palestine. And, there's no way around the fact that random Palestinians walk into Israeli places and start randomly stabbing people and things like that. But obviously, and you can say, oh, those Palestinians, they're not doing the right thing. But in a way, is that the right question to ask? No, the right question to ask is, well, why are Palestinians so angry? Why is a random Palestinian person walking in? Oh, even the Troubles in Ireland. You know, you can say that person who started a car bomb, they weren't doing the right thing. But then at the same time, you can ask, well, hold a minute, does that question even matter when the entire pretense for why they did that was because the British government was, oppressing kind of the religious minority population in Northern Ireland, and obviously the same thing applies in Israel. So it's kind of like, why would you even ask that question when there's this much larger oppression going on, which is the entire pretense for why the person even did what they did? Would kind of be my thoughts. And also, I just want to say on the subject of, was it a good thing? I think it's worth noting that, because I don't think we brought this up. I mean, you sort of brought it up, but Sal doesn't actually end up necessarily worse off from this, because like you say, and like Mookie points out, he has the insurance money.
Yes.
So it is worth noting that one of the things that you kind of need to bear in mind when you're looking at did you do the right thing is the fact that Sal doesn't end up worse off. And apparently he's the one who, I mean, if we're following the logic that Mookie did do the right thing by throwing the, trash can through his pizzeria, then you're assuming that Sal did something wrong, which I think is true. Sal did do something wrong. But then Sal doesn't even get that negatively hurt by it. In fact, the only thing that is destroyed really is the one thing that was connecting Sal to that community in the first place. So it's kind of like a weird situation. And obviously Mookie out of it loses a job. So you kind of get the impression that nothing has, nothing has improved for the black community, and nothing has really even got worse for the people who were bad or were not helping. So yeah, I mean, anything else to say about that?
Well, the whole plot, basically.
Well, because anything else, because the only thing I want to move on to now is style. So,
well, yeah, I mean, no, I guess just to sum up then on the whole thing, yeah. Like, obviously, you have empathy and you understand, and my initial reaction, like I said before, it was like from a very white perspective, and yeah, it is interesting that Spike Lee points out no black person has ever asked him, did Mookie do the right thing? Because either, like you say, they recognise that is not the important question to ask. They're like, oh, that doesn't really matter in the context of the whole thing. I think one of the reasons why the question is asked is because of the title. But anyway, it's a movie which, you just, this is kind of a conclusion, but yeah, you just feel sad after watching it. Like, and that is what, again, Spike Lee does so well. It's just all these characters who are just in this racial powder keg, and tragedy happens, somebody dies, and you're just literally like, damn, like,
tragedy.
What how shit must this be? Like, it's so shit. And so yeah, that's I think he does a really good job, Spike Lee, in terms of just the themes and how it all plays out. So yeah, before we move on to the style, I just want to say, obviously, one of the hilarious but also depressing things that came out of this was the film was it was stated in several newspapers that the film, Do the Right Thing, could incite black audiences to riot. Lee criticised white reviewers for implying that black audiences were incapable of restraining themselves while watching a fictional motion picture, and he said in a 2014 interview, "That still bugs the shit out of me," calling the remarks outrageous, egregious, and racist, and elaborating, "I don't remember people saying people were going to come out of the theatres killing people after they watched Arnold Schwarzenegger films," which is, of course, entirely accurate. And yeah, just, again, like, just the racism, just imagine, like, thinking, oh dear, these black people, they're going to riot after seeing this, like, movie. Like, it's, again, like I said, hilarious, but also depressing as well. And yeah, definitely racist. But anyway, credit to Spike Lee, though, that he could make something that would make people think that it's going to make people riot. Yeah. So, it's kind of a compliment to his filmmaking ability. But yeah.
Yes. Also, I mean, I don't know. Because like you said at the beginning, I mean, $33 million worth of people saw this, so it doesn't seem like people are going to riot. But so style. Spike Lee has a style.
He does, yes.
He reminds me of two directors, and one of the directors is one of my favourite directors. Can you guess which director that is, Luke?
So he reminds you of a director?
So he reminds me of two different directors in terms of his style. And I want to talk about that, but I'm going to turn it into a fun little guessing game. So,
two directors.
Director.
Is one of them?
Well, we'll see. One of them is not as easy to guess. Although, if you're thinking about the style, you might be able to guess it. But
I don't know.
I'll give you a clue. Actually, okay. One of them we have seen a film by them before, or reviewed it on the show.
I'm just guessing here. I don't know, because it was the first thing that popped into my head. That's not really. No, it won't be. It won't be Quentin Tarantino, would it?
No, it's not
because I was just
Tarantino,
like, we've seen Pulp Fiction recently. I was like, oh, maybe.
No.
But
well, okay. So the thing is, actually, the other one, the one we haven't reviewed a film of before, it should be easy to guess because it's a director that I, in particular, really like.
what, the Coen Brothers?
No, yeah, I knew you were going to guess that. Okay, here's the clue that's going to make it easier. Animated.
Oh fuck! Who?
Oh, you're probably not going to remember his name, are you?
No.
Ralph Bakshi.
Oh, Ralph Bakshi, that guy.
Yeah, so Ralph Bakshi made a film called Coonskin, and basically just like the style, because Ralph Bakshi uses something called rotoscoping, which is basically where you animate animated characters onto live action footage, which is obviously what was used in things like Who Framed Roger Rabbit and stuff like that. And he uses that, and basically in Coonskin they go to Brooklyn, and basically the whole it's very similar in that like the way the film's told is very kind of strange, in that you get like scenes of like just random characters sort of giving monologues and stuff like that, and weird almost kind of poetic rants from different characters and stuff like that, which is very similar, I think, to Wes Anderson's style. The second director, I'll just tell you this, is Wes Anderson. Okay, and I got 3 examples of things that Spike Lee does that are similar to things Wes Anderson does. So number 1, easiest one in a way, bright colors. Spike Lee has a lot of kind of bright, somewhat, I guess you'd say, overexposed, like the colors pop in his films. More so in some of his films. Like, I'm kind of doing this in like because a general sense of different Spike Lee films I've seen, but also like they are present in this film to some degree. And bright colors, yeah, Wes Anderson obviously uses bright colors. Mm-hmm. Number two, people talking directly to the camera. That's something which Wes Anderson uses a lot. Just has like
he does, yeah.
People just stare into the camera and talk, and that obviously happens in this. And number 3 is people walking away from the camera. So the obvious example of this with Wes Anderson is in The Grand Budapest Hotel, where Gustav H says, "She's been murdered, and you think I did it," and then he runs kind of like into the back of the lobby and up the stairs, and it's a very hilarious shot. And Spike Lee does that in a lot of his films, annoyingly, because I was thinking about this because, like I said, I've watched like a few of Spike Lee's films to get some context, and I felt like it. And he does it in a lot of his films. Annoyingly, he doesn't do it in this film, but he does do something which is very similar, which is that Samuel L. Jackson wheels towards the lens for one of his shots. I think it's the one where he, after the massive tirade of people saying racist things, which is the most Wes Anderson-y thing ever, people just staring into the camera, apart from, Wes Anderson doesn't use racial slurs, but if you ignore the racial slurs, the idea of like just different actors staring into the camera and just saying lines to the camera is a very Wes Anderson-y thing, and then you get Samuel L. Jackson wheeling into shot going, "People," and that was very Wes Anderson,
fair enough,
basically.
Yeah.
So I thought that. Final thing, lots of shots at an angle, which I think maybe is supposed to communicate the idea that like things aren't as they should be, but also maybe he just felt like putting the camera at an angle, or maybe he had a tripod with unequally lengthed legs. But yeah, a lot of shots are at an angle, and I think, yeah, if I were trying to interpret that, I would say it's probably got something to do with the fact that like it's supposed to make you feel off guard or off kilter, something like that. Yeah. But it also might have just been he felt like doing it, because who knows what goes on in Spike Lee's mind. That's all I have to say about style. So yeah, he's a Ralph Bakshi, Wes Anderson clone. No, hybrid.
Yeah, no, fair enough. That is the best description of Spike Lee I've ever seen. Yeah. Okay, so I think, do we want to talk about the characters at all? Because we've talked about a lot of the characters. Just want to say, by the way, where I recognise...
Oh, no, we don't want to talk about the characters, no. Sorry, what did you say?
Where I recognise Radio Raheem from.
I assume it's the same actor you're not just saying he looked like somebody, right?
No.
Or are you?
No, I'm not. I recognised him from somewhere, the actor.
Something we've reviewed?
The actor is Bill Nunn, and he appears in the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy.
Oh, okay, yeah.
He's the assistant to J. Jonah Jameson.
Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I I roughly remember what it looks like. I might have to look it up, because I do remember it, but I also want to see it anyway.
Yeah, and obviously, let's talk about the Academy Awards, I guess, now. So it was nominated for Best Original Screenplay and Best Supporting Actor for... the white guy was nominated for Best Supporting Actor. The Elias portrayal of Sal, the pizzeria owner. And yeah, in 1999, by the way, the film was deemed culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant in its first year of eligibility by the Library of Congress. So, as we said before with Toy Story, I think that's only happened with like 6 movies. So you can see like how just influential this movie was and how ridiculous it was. It wasn't nominated for Best Picture.
Yes.
Like it's just amazing. It wasn't nominated for Best Picture. Like, and the fact I don't know how good the other movies in that category were in 1990.
Yeah,
but the fact that Driving
I was
Miss Daisy
thinking
won-
if I hadn't been watching the Spike Lee films for this past week, what I should have done or would have done is watched all the different films that were nominated for Best Picture in 1989
You're really
to see if any of them
slacking,
were. I know. Well, I mean, I thought it would be better to be able to make a comment about how Spike Lee was like Wes Anderson and Ralph Bakshi, and I couldn't have made that if I hadn't seen loads of his films.
Yeah, okay. I just love that. That's such a you thing to say. Ralph
Yes.
Bakshi, fucking hell. Is he dead yet, Ralph Bakshi?
I actually almost think he isn't, but let's find out.
I just
No, he's not dead.
Oh,
No, he was born in 1938, and he's 80 years old.
I just don't like the guy just purely because the amount of times you've mentioned his name. I'm sorry.
I know. Well, to be honest, you should be sorry for him.
Yeah.
Also, he was apparently born in Palestine. So it says he was born in the British Mandate of Palestine. So
Interesting. Anyway, Michael, I think it's time to conclude
yes,
on Do the Right Thing. Should I go first or should you go first?
you should go first.
I'll go first. So, okay, Do the Right Thing. Do the Right Thing. This movie is just so interesting, and I kind of love it. Just because, like, what did I say before with that Dave Rubin thing? Just my brain is.
Yeah.
You really need to see that clip. It's a great clip. My brain is.
Yes,
My brain is
I'll
still in
look it
recovery
up.
mode. And it's because it's just like it makes you think, Michael. It really makes you think. But it also, like I said, I was thinking about this film for like a day after I watched it the first time, and just like, wow, how sad this must be, like living in a neighborhood like this, and what a great movie it was to communicate that so perfectly. Like it really just set it up, because obviously the whole movie is kind of setting it up to this big conclusion. While Sal's pizza place gets firebombed, and it does it so well. And yeah, there's just so many things that to do with race. We mentioned obviously the when Pino is talking about Magic Johnson and obviously gentrification, and even like Mookie. I know, what did you say before with him? Like he's a bit of a
he's a dickhead.
he's a prick, but you could
Yeah.
say, well, he resents his dependence on Sal. You know, he resents his dependence on like a white person. You know.
I'd rather he depends his resentment.
Okay. Well, yeah, I guess, you know, I can see why you would say that, but again, it's like, you know, there's no, you know, you can imagine why he's unmotivated, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, you can understand it. And obviously you can understand what happened at the end with him throwing that trash can and just the anger and everything. And yeah, it's a film we can talk about for ages, and we have done it for quite a while. And that, to me, indicates a really interesting movie. So I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10. I really like this.
Yeah. This film did the right thing.
Oh my god, that's great. Well done.
So yeah, basically, this film, I actually want to see it again. That's the thing, and I think that's kind of a message, an indication of a good film. Is a film that you can watch again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And ultimately, you know, if I'm going to rate a film highly, it has to be a film that I want to watch multiple times. Admittedly, like part of it is the reason I wanted to watch this film again is because the first time I don't think I was fully able to appreciate it, so I had to watch it a second time just to appreciate it, which is the same for a few films that are in my top spot. And also watching it more. I watching it again, I did appreciate it more, and I suspect if I watched it a third time, which I will, I know for a fact, at least at some point, I will probably appreciate it even more. Or maybe I've hit a plateau, who knows. But the main thing is, it is a really interesting film. It's definitely a film that's worth watching in terms of its kind of significance. Yeah, I think ultimately, the fact it has a plot, doesn't have a plot doesn't matter at all, because it's so dense with themes. And originally, the first time I watched it, I wasn't really that hit by the emotion of it. The emotion of it was another thing that came more strongly the second time I watched it, and that was something which was really good. All in all, I'm also going to get a 9. I'm actually going to put it more in the low 9 section, which I think is okay. I'm going to put it above Pulp Fiction. I actually don't really have a problem with this at all. Above Pulp Fiction, and below Toy Story. And I'm sure you won't have a problem with me putting it in either of those two places, because I know that you love Toy Story.
I do.
So yeah, Do the Right Thing there, and that's if you're interested in my number 10 spot. So it's in the big 1-0.
Yeah, I think I would. I've got Lady Bird and Toy Story ahead of it, and so it's definitely top 6. Just by judging it. And if I had to guess, I'd probably maybe even put this third. Like,
really? Okay, yeah, that's crazy.
So I decided to put it 9. I was debating 9 or 9.5, and I gave it 9 because I thought it was more at the same level of like the other movies I have at 9. But yeah, no, I think it's like third on my list. I really do like this movie, and
yeah, good. Well done, Luke.
Well done.
You've proven you're not racist.
I know. There you go. That's what it's all about, really. And so yeah, well done to Spike Lee. What are we doing next week, Michael?
We are doing... I was about to say Driving Miss Daisy because we switched them around. We're doing a film, which I think it's fair to say is an equally important film that deals with equally big and important ideas. Notting Hill.
Yes, and I look forward to that. Anyway,
Yes.
We have been selecting and reflecting on Do the Right Thing after Driving Miss Daisy, obviously, because it has been 30 years. And yeah, since that movie came out, one of the most influential films of that time period. And yeah, it's still incredibly interesting to watch and talk about. And so thanks for listening, and join us next week for Notting Hill. Goodbye.
Goodbye.